Most people spend a surprising amount of time trying not to look poor. Not necessarily because they want luxury. Not necessarily because they are trying to impress everyone. But because somewhere along the way, many people quietly absorb the idea that appearance equals progress. That visible success equals actual success. That if life is improving, people should be able to see it. So people upgrade. Better clothes, better devices, better places, better experiences, better signs that things are moving forward. And none of that is automatically wrong. Wanting nice things is normal. Wanting comfort is normal. Wanting to enjoy your work is normal. But something subtle starts happening when appearance slowly becomes part of financial decision-making. Because once image enters the equation, money starts behaving differently. You stop asking, "Does this improve my life?" And you start asking, "What does this communicate? What will people think? Does this look successful enough?" And those questions sound harmless until they become expensive. Because the more money becomes connected to image, the less freedom money creates. And eventually something strange happens. You can earn more and still feel pressure. You can buy more and still feel behind. You can upgrade constantly and still feel like there is another level to reach. Because appearance has no finish line. And this is why one of the most overlooked financial advantages in modern life is something that sounds almost backwards. Not needing to look wealthy. Not needing every improvement to be visible. Not needing your life to constantly announce progress. Because there is a difference between building wealth and displaying wealth, and those two paths do not always lead to the same place. This is not about pretending. This is not about rejecting ambition. And it is definitely not about making poverty look meaningful. This is about understanding that financial strength often grows quietly. And sometimes, the ability to look less successful than you actually are becomes one of the strongest forms of financial protection. Because looking rich and becoming financially stable are often completely different games. One rewards visibility, the other rewards patience. One rewards attention, the other rewards retention. One spends energy proving, the other spends energy building. And if I had to explain why looking poor, or more accurately, why not needing to look rich, can become such a powerful financial advantage, this is where I would begin. The first reason is that appearance creates invisible pressure. People usually think financial pressure comes from bills. But there is another type: social pressure, expectation pressure, lifestyle pressure, the pressure to maintain a version of yourself. Because once people become used to seeing you a certain way, there is pressure to continue. Not because they force you, but because identity becomes expensive. You buy one upgrade, then another, and eventually, your life quietly starts organizing itself around maintenance. And maintenance changes everything. Because buying something once is easy. Supporting it long-term is where costs appear. And costs are not always money. Sometimes they are time, attention, stress, commitment. And eventually, you realize you are no longer making decisions freely. You are making decisions to preserve an image. That is why looking ordinary can become powerful. Because ordinary removes expectations, and lower expectations create breathing room. The second reason is that looking ordinary allows you to build quietly. Most real financial growth looks unimpressive. Nobody celebrates consistency. Nobody notices restraint. Nobody posts screenshots of avoided expenses. Nobody shows the months where they quietly improved systems. But those periods often create the biggest long-term shifts. Because wealth is usually built in the background. Not in dramatic moments, not through visible upgrades, but through repetition, saving, learning, investing, avoiding unnecessary obligations, improving skills, keeping flexibility. And these things are difficult to see externally. That is why many financially stable people often look surprisingly normal. Not because they cannot spend, but because they understand the opportunity cost of constant visibility. Every dollar shown is a dollar not retained. Every upgrade creates future expectations. Every visible improvement changes your baseline. So instead, they build first and reveal later, if they reveal at all. Another reason looking poor matters is because simplicity protects options. This matters more than people realize. Because options are one of the most valuable forms of wealth. The ability to wait, the ability to say no, the ability to change direction, the ability to take opportunities. But options disappear when fixed costs increase. The more expensive your lifestyle becomes, the less flexible your decisions become. And flexibility is difficult to appreciate until life changes, until opportunities appear, until unexpected situations happen. That is when simplicity becomes valuable. Because simplicity leaves room, and room creates resilience. Another reason is that visible success changes how people treat themselves. This is subtle, but important. Once people associate progress with appearance, every achievement begins needing evidence. Every improvement needs display. Every milestone needs confirmation. And over time, success becomes external. But external success behaves differently, because external standards constantly move. There is always another comparison, another upgrade, another benchmark. Minimalist financial thinking interrupts this. It asks, what if progress did not need witnesses? What if progress did not need witnesses? What if success could remain private? What if improvement only needed to improve your life, not your image? Those questions change spending, because they separate value from visibility. Another powerful reason is that ordinary living lowers emotional dependence. People rarely talk about how expensive emotional spending can become. Buying after stress, buying after disappointment, buying after achievement, buying after comparison. And slowly, consumption becomes emotional regulation. Minimalism reduces that cycle. Because when appearance matters less, spending becomes calmer, more intentional, less reactive. And calmer financial decisions often outperform emotional ones over time. There is also an identity shift that happens. You stop trying to look established and start trying to become established. That sounds similar, but it changes everything. Because becoming established focuses on foundations, emergency funds, cash flow, skills, flexibility, systems, while looking established focuses on outcomes, the visible parts, the polished parts. And often, people sacrifice foundations trying to reach outcomes too early. Then something unexpected happens. You become harder to pressure. Trends lose influence. Comparison loses influence. Temporary excitement loses influence. Because your decisions become anchored internally, not externally. And that stability becomes incredibly valuable. Because financial growth is not only about earning, it is also about resisting unnecessary movement. Another reason this matters is that looking ordinary gives you permission to think long-term. Long-term thinking is difficult when life is expensive, because expensive lifestyles demand short-term income. But simple lifestyles create time, and time changes decisions. You stop chasing quick results. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop rushing upgrades, and long-term thinking compounds. Eventually, you begin noticing something strange. Many of the strongest people financially are not performing wealth. They are protecting it, quietly, patiently, without needing constant proof. And that changes your entire definition of success. Because success stops being, what can I show? And becomes, what can I sustain? What can I keep? What gives me freedom? And those questions usually lead somewhere more stable. Because in the end, the goal is not to look poor. The goal is not to reject comfort. The goal is not to avoid enjoying life. The goal is something much simpler, to become financially strong enough. That appearance no longer controls your decisions. To become stable enough that you no longer need external confirmation. To become free enough that your money starts serving your future instead of protecting your image. And sometimes, that process looks surprisingly ordinary from the outside. But ordinary and unsuccessful are not always the same thing.